He arrived on the campus, possibly through an Uber driver that dropped him off. He arrived around the time of dismissal, entered the building, began to fire into the building. Smoke from the firearm also set off the fire alarm. He proceeded through the 2 floors of the building and also at the end discarded his firearm and gear that he had on and exited the building along with students who were evacuating.
The suspect then took the west stairwell to the 2nd floor and shot one victim in room 1234 on the 2nd floor. The suspect then took the east stairwell to the 3rd floor. He dropped his rifle and backpack, ran down the stairs. He exited building 12 and ran towards the tennis courts, and then took a southbound turn on foot.
I get to the door at the top of the west stairwell in the 1200 building. We hear gunfire. I assume that it's a code red drill because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks. There's the shooters already up at the tail end of the hall, at the other end, the east end of the building. Heard 2 shots. I didn't see it, but then those 2 shots would have been my friend Scott Beagle getting shot and killed while trying to save his kids. One of my former students, a kid who's a senior named Joaquin Oliver, screamed, turned, he was shot. At that point, I looked down at the shooter. He looked at me, pointed his AR at me, and started shooting.
As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And as we were walking, the whole class together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nikolas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him...
You were walking down the hall, he had already fired at that time?
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not.
Why do you say that?
Because when shots were fired, I saw him after the fact. So, and the shots were coming from the other part of the building. So there definitely had to be 2 shooters involved, I believe.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Christina Vega. Christina Vega. 9th. And then they taught us, they said that if there's like a fire drill, they want all the kids to run out, so that would make an easier shot. And then you just hear a bunch of like pounding, but I thought it was someone hitting something, and I kind of look at my friend Nick, and he's like, do you hear that? And like everybody just starts pushing each other, running, and then we're kind of just like, is this what's happening? And then we realized, like, we thought this was a drill because they said they'll use blanks in a drill, but they actually didn't. They it was real. All the kids to go outside so they could start shooting up. So they started shooting from the first floor up, because there's only 2 exits in the freshman building, so everybody started running to the other exits, but that's when the other shooter started coming up. So everybody, and then I thank God to this teacher who opened up her door and like all of us, and she got shot in the arm trying to open the door, and then the other teacher, he got shot in the head trying to cut the other students, and he started taunting us in the hallways, trying to get us outside. He was like, hey, hey, and I felt like, it just felt like so creepy. It was like kind of like he's trying to get us in here, like he was like taunting us, like, hey, hey, like screaming it, because he wanted to get kids out to think everything was all right, but none of us wanted to leave.
How were you calming them down?
I think there was a bunch of people calming them down. There was mostly the girls crying because they're just sensitive to the whole thing, because they figured out it was real after this girl opened the article and said, like, saw all the helicopters and we heard the guns outside of the policemen. I heard him get shot, and I was like, oh no, they're like out for cold blood. And basically, when we were all free, when the policemen bust down the window, the door, we finally got out, and they started yelling at us to keep focused and to pay attention ahead, the army people, because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in the corner. They were putting mats over them so we wouldn't see them. They were trying to.
So you think there was more than? Do you think there was more than one shooter?
There's 3 shooters. That's what I hear. Definitely. I know one teacher's dead. That's what there's 2 security guards who are dead. The teacher's dead, and then my other teacher, she got shot in the arm, but she's fine. She just started walking home too.
Some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask. He had smoke grenades. He hit the fire alarm.
Nikolas, I think we spell his name Nikolas Cruz, was the killer. The killer never was in possession of a gas mask or any type of smoke grenades. We did recover a balaclava, which for those of you who might not know is just a face mask with eye slits.
Well, let me give you some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask and had smoke grenades. He then went and activated the alarm system.
When everybody realized that and he started coming up the stairs, everybody started running back to their room. There was like a stampede of people just sprinting back to their rooms. We were all waiting at the door, and he comes over and he unlocks the door, and we all get in. And I see this figure come up the stairs with this pistol, and I guess that was him.
I was about 2 feet away from my door. All of a sudden I heard gunshots in the stairwell, which is about 20 feet away from my room. And then kids were screaming and then running back towards me and towards the end of the hallway. So I just went in this very strange autopilot mode where I pivoted on my feet. I unlocked my door, and then kids just started pouring in my room. I don't know how many kids were in there, but I was pulling them and getting them in and shouting at them to get in the room. And then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before. I don't know when I decided it was the right time to close the door. I grabbed the handle with both hands, and that's when I got nicked, or grazed, or whatever you call it.
So a bullet hit your arm?
Yes. As I'm closing my door, I'm shouting at my next door neighbor, Mr. Scott Beagle, to close his door. But he couldn't see the shooter. I had a good visual of him, which is why I yelled at him to shut his door now. I heard him shoot a barrage of bullets into Mr. Beagle's room. And then he came to my room and shot about 4 or 5 shots into my room, breaking the glass of my door. There's a rectangular piece of glass. And I heard him continuously shooting down the hallway, down the hallway. And I never really knew when he left because we just thought he was still there.
Judge Henning, as you know, has already reviewed the report and redacted those parts which allow her to protect Mr. Cruz's privacy rights under HIPAA and FERPA, and at the same time permit disclosure of what would otherwise be a public document. And the first one is that Judge Henning has made it very clear that her only duty was to redact out what she felt was a violation of the privacy statutes for medical treatment and for his educational purposes.
Judge Henning agreed, and with some minor modifications, provided the redacted version that eliminates the discussions of Mr. Cruz's personal educational records.
But the judge very specifically ordered that everything be held confidential. And that's, made it easy for us to basically agree, because this way it's only limited, and she went through the litany of reasons why all of this should remain confidential. She limited it to attorneys, to their staff, to their investigators, and to the victims and the surviving victims' families.
All of the, as far as I can tell, all of the defendant's specific educational records have been completely redacted. In fact, 27 pages worth of redactions. So I do find that there's nothing in the redacted report which would pose any threat to the administration of justice or the defendant's right to a fair trial based on the redacted report in its current form. So I am going to deny your motion.
This report, released by Broward County Schools Friday, details what the school district got right and wrong about Nikolas Cruz prior to the shooting on Valentine's Day. Much of the independent report is blacked out, redacted. The reason, it's private information about Cruz, something his public defender fought to keep private and the courts agreed to.
That's right. Much of this report that was released involving the specific personal information about Nikolas Cruz is blacked out. It is hidden from view. We can't read it.
Yeah, Rick, this is the document in question here, and if you look in, you'll see some very redacted pages here. But if you go online and look at the digital version of this, all this black text disappears. In fact, this is exactly what the court ordered not to happen.
What they had blacked out in the report was his school history, a lot of his mental health issues.
Sun Sentinel managing editor Dana Banker found the report significant, but it lacked details.
Hey, did you know you can actually see what's in that report?
Just copy the document, paste it, and voila. The Sun Sentinel published the redacted details.
Uncovered every single detail of the lengthy report, shining a light on Nikolas Cruz's history as a student. It says Cruz showed bizarre behavior, identifying himself as an animal, and impulsive with no sense of boundaries. But things quickly went south, socially and emotionally, failing 4 classes and earning D's in 2 others, describing his overall time with the school system as having a few ups and downs, but mostly positive, spending most of his school years under special needs care. He entered Stoneman Douglas High School after showing progress, but things eventually went south. In one instance, he reportedly struggled with suicidal thoughts, drank gasoline to try to hurt himself, and would also cut himself. The report also documents his desire to be armed, asking his mother to help him get a Florida ID to buy a firearm. His mother didn't think it was cause for concern. Cruz raised enough alarm at the school he was banned from wearing a backpack. According to the report, school officials recommended he go back to a special needs school, his grades failing.
The Sun Sentinel published the redacted details. This is exactly what the court ordered not to happen.
I just feel it's imperative that we get as much information to people as we can.
A judge ruling the Department of Children and Families can release a report on their involvement with Cruz in late 2016, when someone called their hotline to say Cruz was acting erratically.
The reports themselves classify Nikolas Cruz as a vulnerable adult due to mental illness, specifically due to depression, ADHD, which would be attention deficit with hyperactivity disorder, autism, and that he was taking medication as a result of these issues.
And we're now learning more about the suspected shooter through his education plan first obtained by ABC affiliate WPLG. It shows Cruz was attending a school for emotionally and behaviorally disabled students in 2015. Administrators noting while he was making progress at the alternative school, he was reported to be distracted by inappropriate conversations of his peers if the topic is about guns, people being killed, or the armed forces.